Sleep ship archive. Transmission initiated. Vessel status stable. All primary systems nominal. Cryosleep monitoring nominal. Archive integrity confirmed. Voyage year 214. Tonight's record comes from the acoustic archives of old Earth. The subject, sound, what it appeared to be, and what it actually was, which were not the same thing. Sound was not a thing that existed on its own. It was a movement through something. That something had to be present first. The medium, the material, the air between the source and the listener. Remove the medium, and there is no sound, not quiet sound, not faint sound. Nothing. This is not a record about noise. It is not a record about music, or about the technology of communication, or about the anatomy of the ear. It is about the prior condition, the carrier, the medium, the requirement that something be between the source and the receiver before anything can travel between them. This record is about contact, about the condition that allows something to move from one place to another through the material between them. The colonists aboard this vessel live inside that condition. Outside the hull, they do not. You may rest now. The archive will do the work of the night. Feel the breath. The air entering through the nose or the mouth, slightly cooler than the interior of the body, moving through the passages of the throat, expanding the chest. You do not need to control it. The body manages the breath without instruction. What you can notice is the movement, the expansion and the return, the slight change in pressure inside the chest as the diaphragm contracts and the lungs fill, and then the release. The air moving in and out of the body is the same air that carries sound to you. When you breathe in, you are moving this material, not creating it. It was already moving. When you breathe out, you're pushing a wave of it back into the room, a column of molecules that displaces the molecules ahead of it as it moves. This displacement is how sound works. The breath is not separate from the mechanism. The breath is the mechanism. Pressure moving through air, disturbing what is in the way. The disturbance traveling outward from the source. There are sounds in this space now, or something close to it. The systems of the vessel produce sounds, low and continuous, the kind the body stops registering after a short time because they do not change. Not silence, presence at the threshold of attention, a hum in the walls and the floor, a movement of air through the environmental systems, the subtle creak or shift of materials under the stresses of transit. These sounds have been in the space since before you lay down. They will be here when you wake. The body registered them when they began and then stopped registering them, because what does not change does not require attention. You can hear them again if you listen. The carrier is always active. Sound is not a thing. It is a movement through something. When a surface vibrates, a voice, a string, a wall, it pushes against the air immediately around it. That push compresses the air slightly, creating a region of higher pressure just adjacent to the surface. That region of higher pressure pushes against the air beyond it, which compresses slightly, which pushes the air beyond that. The compression moves outward from the source through the air, one layer of molecules disturbing the next, a wave of pressure traveling through the medium. What travels is not the air. The air molecules themselves do not move far. They compress and then return. Pushed by the compression and then relaxing back as it passes, oscillating around their original positions. The thing that moves through them is the pressure pattern. The wave of compression passing through the material, each molecule doing a small oscillation and passing the disturbance to the next. What reaches you is not the source. What reaches you is the pattern. The compression wave that originated at the source and has traveled through the air between you and it, each layer of molecules passing the disturbance along until the last layer presses against the surface of the ear and the ear responds. The source could be across the room. The air is between you. The disturbance moves through the air and arrives. The sound of a voice, the sound of an engine, the sound of a door closing in a room 2 walls away. Each of these is a pattern of pressure moving through the material of the air and the material of the walls and arriving at the surface of the body. The pattern carries the information of its source, the frequency, the rhythm, the duration, and the body reads it. The body does not hear sound. The body is moved by it. The body felt certain sounds before it understood what sound was. The sensation preceded the concept. Even at ordinary levels, sound is touch. The compression wave that arrives at the ear has already moved through the air and changed the air it moved through. Displaced it slightly, compressed it, set it in motion. By the time it reaches the surface of the eardrum, it has touched everything between the source and the listener. The space between 2 people speaking is not empty. It is full of the movement of what they said. Nothing moves without touching something. Air is not empty. The hand passes through it. The eye sees through it. It appears to offer no resistance and occupy no space. But it has mass. It has pressure. It is a collection of molecules in continuous motion, occupying the spaces between things, pressing on every surface they touch. The body is still under that pressure in this vessel, managed, within the range the biology requires. That pressure is what sound moves through. The compression wave is a local, temporary increase in that pressure. Molecules slightly closer together than usual, moving through the medium. The wave has a speed. It takes time to arrive. At close range, the gap is too small to notice. A voice in the same room reaches the ear before the brain can register any delay. But in a larger space, a hall, a canyon, the gap is perceptible. The source produces the sound and the body waits. Air carries what cannot move alone. Sound requires contact, not the dramatic contact of collision, of impact, of 2 things striking each other. The finer contact, molecule pressing on molecule, the boundary between the vibrating surface and the air immediately adjacent to it, the interface between the moving thing and the medium it moves through. Without the interface, nothing transfers. A speaker cone vibrating in vacuum produces no sound. The cone moves. The mechanism works. The electrical signal is there and the physical movement is there. The cone pushing forward and pulling back at the frequency of the signal, doing what it was designed to do. But the air is not there. There is no medium adjacent to the cone's surface to receive the push. The movement happens and nothing carries it. The vibration is real and the sound is absent. Contact is the requirement. The body lying against a surface hears 2 things at once. There is the sound that arrives through air, the compression wave traveling from its source through the atmosphere of the room to the outer ear in the usual way. And there is the sound that arrives through the surface. Vibration moving through the material of whatever the body rests against, conducted through the skull and the tissues by bone conduction, bypassing the outer ear entirely. Press your ear to a table, and the table reports what the air has not told you. Footsteps on another floor, the low vibration of machinery running somewhere else in the building, the specific thrum of whatever is passing through the structure. The table is a medium. The ear pressed against it completes a different circuit than the ear open to air. You are lying against a surface now. The surface is part of this vessel. It is conducting something. The hum of the systems, the vibration of the structure, the low continuous report of the machinery in operation. The air carries some of this. The surface carries more of it. Between the 2, The body receives the acoustic environment of the ship through every interface it is in contact with. The voice is not a thing thrown across a room. It is a disturbance moved through a medium, shaped as it travels by the medium's properties and the spaces it passes through, arriving at the ear changed by the journey. You do not hear the source, you hear what the medium carried. Sound does not travel, contact does. Sound moves through more than air. Any material with mass and the capacity to be compressed and spring back can carry a sound wave. Stone, metal, water, wood, the body. The wall between you and the next room is not a barrier to sound, but a different medium, one with different properties, different density, different speed of transmission, but a medium nonetheless. The sound arrives at the surface of the wall, and the wall receives it, not all of it. Some is reflected back into the room. The wall is not perfectly absorptive, and some of the wave bounces back from the surface. Some is absorbed, converted into heat by the internal friction of the wall material, and some is transmitted, the compression passing into the wall material, moving through it, arriving at the other surface, and re-entering the air on the other side. What you hear through a wall is quieter. The higher frequencies, the ones that carry the distinct quality of a voice, the articulation of consonants, are absorbed more than the lower ones. The low frequencies carry better through dense material. What arrives through the wall is the body of the sound without its detail. You can hear that someone is speaking before you can hear the words. You can hear that music is playing before you can identify the melody. The medium filtered what it passed. The floor carries sound too. Footsteps above arriving not as airborne sound, but as structure-borne vibration, moving through the material from point of contact to point of reception. The ship carries sound this way: the hull, the decking, the structural members. All of them transmit vibration from wherever it originates to wherever you are. A system engaging two sections away, the slow repositioning of cargo, the particular rhythm of a pump cycling. These sounds travel through structure before they reach the air and then the ear. The ship is not a container for sound, it is a conductor of it. Nothing here is isolated. The medium is everywhere. The body conducts sound, not metaphorically. The body is a medium, a complex material with density and elasticity, through which compression waves travel the same way they travel through any other material with those properties. The water in the tissues, the bone, the cartilage, the trapped air in the sinuses and the lungs. Each of these has different acoustic properties, different speeds of transmission, different degrees of absorption, but all of them carry sound. The skull carries sound to the inner ear directly. When you press your hands over your ears and hum, what you hear is not only air-conducted sound leaking through the hands. It is the bone conduction of your own voice traveling through the skull to the cochlea, bypassing the air entirely. The voice sounds different this way, deeper. The higher frequencies that travel easily through air are not as easily conducted through bone. What the skull passes is the lower register, and this is why a recorded voice sounds unfamiliar to its speaker. The speaker hears their own voice partly through bone, and the recording captures only what moved through air. Hearing is contact. The compression wave arrives at the eardrum. The eardrum moves. 3 small bones carry that movement deeper. Inside the cochlea, it passes through fluid, bends cells, and becomes an electrical signal in a nerve. The sound that entered as a pressure wave in air has become an electrical signal. It was always contact. Molecule touching molecule, from the source through the air to the eardrum, through the bones, through the fluid, through the cells to the nerve. An unbroken chain of contact from whatever produced the sound to the signal, the brain receives as hearing. Nothing was transmitted without touching. What you hear is the end of a chain of contact that began somewhere else. You are the final medium. The body adds to what it receives. The ear, the skull, the chest cavity. All of them resonate at certain frequencies, emphasizing what arrives and shaping the signal before it becomes what the brain calls sound. What the brain constructs as hearing is not what arrived at the ear. It is what the brain built from what arrived. Shaped by everything the body added and everything the medium removed. Not all vibrations arrive the same. A sound is a wave, and a wave has a frequency, the rate at which the compression and rarefaction repeat. Slow repetition produces low sound. Fast repetition produces high sound. The range the body hears spans the low frequencies that are felt more than heard to the high frequencies that become inaudible before they become imperceptible through the skin and bone of the skull. Below the hearing threshold, the body still responds, not as sound but as felt pressure, as vibration in the chest and the gut, as the quality of standing close to something very large and very active. Concert halls have been designed to avoid certain low frequencies that cause discomfort or a vague unease in the listeners, not from any sound they can identify, but from the physical resonance in structures and bodies that the frequency produces. The body is tuned. The range of frequencies it hears is the range that carried information in the environments it developed in. The calls of others, the sounds of weather, the particular acoustic signatures that meant something was approaching or departing. The low hum of the vessel's systems is at the lower edge of this range. You hear it faintly if you attend to it. You feel it in the surfaces you are in contact with if you pay attention to that instead. The decking under you, the surface you rest against. It is not silence in this vessel. It is a narrow band of continuous low vibration, produced by the systems that keep everything running, carried through the structure to every part of the ship, received by the body as a felt presence rather than a heard sound. The body stopped registering it. It is still here. Every enclosed space has preferred frequencies. It is not a neutral container, but a resonant object, shaped by its dimensions and its surfaces, favoring some frequencies over others. The vessel has its own frequencies. The geometry of the spaces inside this ship, the materials of the walls and decking and overhead, the particular dimensions of each chamber. These combine to create an acoustic signature that belongs to this ship, not to ships in general, not to any recording or simulation. The resonant character of this specific volume of enclosed space, which the body inside it has absorbed without registering and would notice immediately if it changed. Every enclosed space sounds like itself. This one has sounded like itself for 214 years of voyage. The body knows it. The baseline is deep. Outside this vessel, there is nothing to carry a sound. The space between stars is not empty in every sense. There is matter out there, sparse and cold and diffuse beyond any familiar reference, but not at the density or temperature that allows sound to propagate. The distances between particles are too vast. The compression wave that moves through air by pushing one molecule into the next finds no next molecule. The disturbance cannot move forward because there is nothing adjacent to move. Quiet implies a reduction, a room with less noise, a distance from sources. Quiet is a degree. What exists outside the hull is not a degree. It is the complete absence of the condition that allows sound to exist, not low sound, not threshold sound. The category does not apply. No explosion produces sound in space. The largest energetic events in the universe. Stars collapsing, matter in motion at tremendous scale. produce enormous amounts of energy and light and radiation, but no sound. There is no medium for it. The events occur and the energy disperses in every form the vacuum allows and the one form it does not allow, which is the compression wave in a medium. Inside the vessel, sound exists because the conditions for it exist. The air at sufficient density, the structure that transmits vibration, the surfaces that reflect and absorb and carry. The hum of the systems, the movement of air through the environmental controls, the subtle vibration of materials under the stresses of the voyage. All of this is sound, or the condition that makes sound available. Life and sound are coincident here. Step outside the hull and the conditions end. The sounds produced in the body, the heartbeat, the breath, the movement of blood in the ears that produces the body's own internal hum, would continue inside a suit. The suit carries air and transmits vibration, and inside the suit there is still a medium. But the suit is a contained envelope. The sound stops at its surface. Beyond that, the absence of transmission. Sound does not diminish in space. It stops. The medium ends and the wave has nothing left to move through. Not distant, not quiet, not below the threshold of hearing. Where the medium ends, sound ends, gone. The hull of this vessel is a boundary. On one side, air, pressure, vibration, transmission. The conditions that allow sound to move from source to receiver. The hum of the systems and the breath of the sleepers and the subtle continuous movement of material under load. All of it present, all of it carried, all of it available to be heard if the ear attends to it. On the other side, the condition that does not allow. The hull is not thick by the standards of the distances it crosses. Measured against the scale of the voyage, it is a surface. But acoustically, it is the edge of the possible. The last material through which sound can propagate before the medium ends. The vibrations in the hull travel through the metal and reach the outer surface, and the outer surface has no adjacent medium to push against. The wave cannot continue. The vibrations produced by the engines and the environmental systems would, in a different context, radiate outward as sound. The way a speaker radiates, pushing its vibrations into the air around it. The hull pushes its vibrations into nothing. The sound energy that reaches the outer surface ends there, not transmitted, not reflected back in any useful quantity, simply stopping at the boundary of the possible. The vessel is acoustically contained, not by design aimed at quiet, by physics. There is nothing to carry sound outward. What the ship produces stays inside the ship, traveling through its materials and its air, bounded by the medium's limits. The sounds generated inside do not leave. The hull is thin. The difference at its surface is total. Inside the hull, contact. Outside, the condition that precedes it. Nothing outside this surface has ever carried a sound. Return to the sounds that are present now. There is the breath, the movement of air in and out, the body's constant exchange with the atmosphere of the vessel. The breath produces a small wave of disturbed air that moves outward and is absorbed by the surfaces nearby. It is quieter than almost any other sound a body produces. And it is constant. There is the hum, the particular frequency signature of this vessel in operation, the combined result of every system that requires power and movement to function, each contributing its vibration to the structure transmitting it through the decking and the walls and the surfaces to every part of the ship. The ear cataloged it and filed it and ceased to consciously register it. But the body knows it. The body has been inside it long enough that any change would be immediately perceptible, even from sleep. A shift in frequency, an interruption, a new vibration added to the familiar pattern. The body uses the hum as baseline. What changes from baseline is information. What stays the same is background. This is the function of the constant sound environment the body lives in, not information, but context, the acoustic landscape against which changes are perceived. The sound that wakes you is not always the loud one, it is the different one. The sounds of the systems carry information about their state. A change in the hum of an engine tells a trained ear something about the engine. The particular character of the air cycling tells something about the status of the atmosphere. The subtle sounds of the structure adjusting under load tell something about the stresses of transit. The crew reads it, the sailor listened to a ship, the engineer listened to a machine. The body listens even when the mind is not attending. The carrier is present. The transmission is continuous. Communication requires a medium. The voice that carries across a room does so because there is air between the speaker and the listener. What reaches the listener is changed by the medium. The geometry of the space shapes what arrives, the temperature, the humidity. Everything between the source and the ear leaves its mark. The medium and the environment together determine what arrives. You have always been receiving filtered transmissions. Every sound you heard on old Earth was shaped by the medium it traveled through. The voice of someone who spoke to you reached you through the particular air of the particular space, reflected off the particular surfaces, filtered by the particular geometry of where you were. The recording of a voice loses some of this. The playback through a speaker in a different acoustic environment, the absence of the specific air of the specific room. Something is always lost in transit. What survives is what the medium carried. The medium is not neutral, it is a participant. Every substance through which sound travels adds something of itself to what arrives. Its absorption, its reflection, its speed, its resonance. The stone room and the wooden room and the outdoor hillside each produce a different acoustic character in the same sound, because the medium and its surroundings are different. What you hear is the sound as the medium delivered it, which is not exactly the sound as it was produced. The medium is always in the transmission. A voice that traveled from a person through air into a microphone, through circuitry, to a recording, through a transmission to a speaker, through air again to an ear, has passed through many media and many conversions. Air to membrane to electrical signal to magnetic encoding to electrical signal again to speaker cone to air to eardrum. At each conversion, something small is lost. The recording of a voice from 200 years ago does not sound exactly like the voice as it sounded in the room where it was spoken. The media that carried it have all left their mark. What arrives is always downstream of origin. What you hear from any source is the sound after the media. The source produced something. The chain of contact carried what it could. The body received the remainder. None of these transmissions are lossless, and the losses are not random. They are the character of the media, the signature of the path. Not all sound arrives. The wave that moves outward from a source spreads in all directions. The same energy distributed across a growing surface. The sound grows quieter with distance. At sufficient distance, a sound falls below the threshold, not gone, still moving, still displacing. It simply can no longer be heard. The threshold of hearing is a property of the ear, not of the wave. Below the threshold, the wave continues without a receiver. The medium absorbs too. Sound moving through air gives a portion of its energy to the air. Converted into heat by the friction of molecular interaction, the wave giving something of itself to the medium as it passes through. The higher the frequency, the more is absorbed per unit of distance. This is why distant thunder has a different quality than close thunder. The sharp crack of the higher frequencies is absorbed on the way, and what arrives from far away is the low roll, the frequencies that survive the journey. What arrives is the remainder. The room is part of the sound. You heard old Earth through its air and its spaces. What you carry from those places includes their sound. Return now to the body and the surfaces it rests against, and the air between this space and the walls of the vessel. The cryogenic systems that maintain the colonists produce a sound, not a dramatic sound, not the sound you might imagine for a technology of that scale. Not powerful, not mechanical in a way that announces itself. A low, continuous, regular presence in the acoustic environment of the ship. A hum of a particular frequency, produced by the refrigeration systems and transmitted through the mounting points of the equipment into the structure of the ship and from the structure into the air of the spaces nearby. The colonists in cryosleep do not hear it. The body in that state does not process auditory signals. But the sound exists. It is present in the air and the structure of this space right now. You are inside the acoustic environment of this vessel. The environmental systems cycling the air are producing sound. The movement of air through the ducting, the operation of the fans and filters, the particular resonance of the ducting itself as air moves through it. Each of these is a compression wave, or a collection of compression waves moving through the air of the vessel and through the structure, arriving at every surface, absorbed by some and reflected by others, building the acoustic texture of the space. The sounds of the ship have been the constant backdrop of the voyage, not heard directly, not cataloged, absorbed by the body in the way that constant things are absorbed, filed as background, available for comparison, no longer the object of attention. What the body has been attending to without instruction is any deviation from this background, any new sound, any change in the familiar frequencies, any absence of something that has been present. These would register immediately even from the edge of sleep. Absence of expected sound is information. Presence of unexpected sound is information. The acoustic environment of the ship carries the ship's status continuously to anyone who has spent enough time inside it to know the baseline. The hum is present. The systems are cycling. The air is moving through the filters and returning. The refrigeration is maintaining the cryogenic temperature. The structure is transmitting the vibrations of the machinery through its material to this surface and this air and this moment. The condition is nominal. You know the baseline. The transmission is continuous. The archive record for sound is now complete for this transmission. Sound was not a property of the universe. It was a property of the relationship between vibration and medium. The universe contains vibration in abundance. The movement of matter at every scale, from the oscillation of molecules to the long trembling of stars. What produces sound from that vibration is the presence of a medium that can carry it. Without the medium, the vibration is real and the sound is absent. Air carried every sound the ear has ever received. That channel is still here. Sound continues here because the conditions continue. The same conditions that make the vessel livable. The maintained atmosphere, the pressure, the temperature, make sound possible. They are not separate considerations. The air the biology requires to breathe is the air that carries vibration from source to ear. The medium of life and the medium of sound are the same medium. The hull contains it. Beyond the hull, the medium ends. Inside, the hum of the systems, the slow exchange of breath, the subtle vibration of structure under the pressures of transit. All of it present, all of it moving through the medium to whatever receives it. The carrier is never resting. Every surface in this vessel is receiving vibration right now. The walls of this space are in motion, not motion visible to the eye, but the microscopic oscillation of the material under the influence of the sound waves present in the air and the vibration passing through the structure. The floor is in motion. The surfaces the colonists rest against are in motion. Everything is receiving and absorbing and reflecting and conducting the sound environment of the ship, all of it continuously. The medium is present. The transmission continues. Sleep ship archive, transmission complete. Vessel status, stable. Cryosleep monitoring nominal. All systems nominal. Archive records sealed and filed. Voyage continues. The hum is still there. Please continue restorative sleep.